Picky eating or fussy eating is a very natural occurrence during childhood. I'm talking about children from the age of 1 and up, not 1 and below. There's not a clear consensus about what picky eating or fussy eating is, but most research methods and most research and systematic reviews describes it in different ways, but generally use the terms either picky eating, fussy eating, or food neophobia, which includes a persistence in likes and dislikes in foods and a tendency to prefer the familiar foods. There are many different reasons why this occurs, and it's very stressful when it does occur. But it's very normal, and there's lots of ways to try and overcome it, but none of them have major scientific evidence and proof behind them. So it's a bit of a trial and error in this sort of area. But there's increased focus on it, so there's lots more evidence that will come up. So we're in 2023 now. We'll probably have lots of evidence on it in 2033. I know it's a long time, but we gotta be patient. Science is worth waiting for. There are different reasons why this picky eating or fussy eating can occur, and one of them is that it may have served an evolutionary purpose, that we weren't just supposed to go around and eating everything, because what if some of it was poisonous or there were toxins in some of it? That would have given us a serious threat. So that's why we're very careful about what we put in our mouths, and particularly when we taste bitter things. Bitterness seems to be the latest taste that we will actually get to enjoy, and some people might still not like it even into adulthood. We're talking about stuff like coffee. Coffee is very bitter. I don't like coffee. Like, if you just have black coffee, I only like it if I have it with milk and sugar, or additives, sugar substances. I just don't like it straight, and that's because I don't enjoy the bitter taste. So it serves some sort of evolutionary purpose. Well, that's one of them, but the other one could be the modeling from your parental figures. If you did not grow up, or if your children do not grow up seeing you or your fiance or whomever, even their peers, if they don't eat the food, or they eat the food and they have a negative response to it, they might be a bit more withheld and drawn back and thought, okay, well, they didn't really like it, so maybe I won't either. Again, the evolutionary purpose, trying to keep us safe. But also, if it's just not a part of your household and it's not on the table and it's not being introduced regularly, it will be an unfamiliar food, and it will just not be part of their everyday food choices because it's not there, it's not readily available. But this is where you can bring it in and start introducing more foods. Now, you need to be persistent in showing foods, tasting foods, looking at foods, touching foods, licking foods. It takes a long time to get used to foods, roughly about 10 to 15 times to get familiar with the food, and then another 10 to 15 times to actually think that the food is okay, and maybe it's something that I want to touch or maybe try and eat. And this happens on different occurrences. You can't just introduce the same food 10 times in one evening. It has to be separate times, and it helps if you've got role models or peers that eat the same thing, or they have had some sort of experience with it in the kitchen. Now, if you want to bring your child into the kitchen and start making some stuff, you have to make this age appropriate. But as I don't know the age of your child, you are free to evaluate individually and see how much your child can do and try out a few things. But on one of the websites, Taste for Life nursery.com, which is a UK website or an English website, you can print out these different diplomas and rewards for like maybe cutting or touching or recognizing a fruit or vegetable, or licking or tasting or feeling it on the cheek. Having some sort of sensory touch or sensory feeling or sensory experience with the food will also increase the familiarity, and it will let the child know that I don't die from touching it or touching it against my cheek or licking it. Or if they think that, okay, what if they see a tomato and they think, ooh, it looks fine on the outside, but then on the inside it's all wet and ooh, that's weird. Well, if they just lick it but don't chew it but spit it out again, that's a huge step. Just licking it, that's really brave. So positive reinforcement, role modeling, maybe you can lick another slice of the tomato too, and then verbal instructions on what to do or what the tomato will look like. Forcing your child to eat the food will only make things worse. It's a completely counterintuitive approach and should definitely not be used. It's not recommended. It can increase this nervousness, and it can increase this food neophobia, and you don't want to have pressure and then connect that with food. So during meal times, try to make the environment as nice as possible. Try to see if you've got a bit extra time. And I know it's so bloody frustrating when children just don't eat the food that you want them to, but adding pressure will only make things worse, because they connect the pressure with eating or pressure with the food, and pressure doesn't create an environment for eating. It actually decreases the feeling of wanting to eat. So having a nice environment and positive reinforcement with the food, even just looking at it, or putting a spoon down and then looking at the food and putting it back in the bowl, still a huge step. They're engaging with the food. And yeah, as I mentioned before, it's completely and utterly frustrating when this happens, and it can be detrimental to the parents or the mothers or whomever is the caregiver for this child. But there is help to seek, and it is normal. It happens to a lot of children, so you are not alone. Yeah, I hope this helps. And I hope this calms your nerves just a bit. It is frustrating, but it is normal. And I wish you all the best.